Go. Good afternoon, everyone. Don Anderson here with Sunny Danforth on another wonderful Wednesday. And today she's sunny again, but that doesn't mean she's still not winning.
No, we are winning. I'm sunny. It was a sunny, beautiful day here, like 60 degrees.
Wow.
Woo! And the
Short
days are
sweater.
getting longer, it's beautiful. Beautiful over here in Northeast Oregon. And Don, this is the last Wednesday of February.
Mm. Can you believe it? How fast did that get here?
Pretty quick. Pretty quick.
And time
And
travels pretty fast when you're on Trump time.
oh man, it's like lightning, warp speed. Warp speed. Stuff is happening so fast. It really is. Today was his first. I got to see a little bit of his first boardroom or board
Mhm.
meeting, and I'll tell you that what a table! It looks like there must have been about 40 people sitting around it,
Mhm.
and not everybody could sit at the table. They had the second
Mhm.
row,
Mhm.
behind, and then the media was in there.
Mhm.
And Trump had asked Elon. Well, first they had a great prayer. Oh my gosh, it was a great. They opened it all up with a prayer. Here's the new media is in there,
Mhm.
right? With all that stayed over an hour. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I've read that it was over an hour.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was really good. And then he called on Elon Musk to say, hey, what are you doing, Elon? I've asked Elon to look at all these agencies and whatnot,
Mhm.
and he did. And one of his first statements is that Elon said was, you know, these people, this cabinet right here, I think is the best cabinet our government has ever had.
Well, I tell you
He
what.
says, and I don't give praise cheaply or something like that, falsely. He says,
Mhm.
I don't give praise falsely.
Well, at least in our lifetimes. I mean, remember I
Yes.
forget the term they had, the brain trust that John Kennedy had was supposed to be, all that in the bag of chips, I guess. I don't know what that first cabinet looked like, but if you think about what who could potentially have been on it, given the nature of the founding fathers, that must have been a pretty incredible group. But
Yes.
certainly in our lifetimes, it's it's pretty dramatic, and every one of them articulate, every one of them smart, every one of them able to get in front of a camera. And probably one of the neatest things about what we're seeing right now is we've got people who can get in front of a camera and talk articulately on the spur of the moment without teleprompters. It's just without just speaking to us and can converse no matter who the audience is. It's like and are open to it after
Yeah.
what we just went through with the president and the whole staff in the basement for 4 years. It's just amazing.
And and the deception that we've been through the last 4 years. So it was dang refreshing seeing that and seeing what little bit that I did get to watch of that. Wow, wow, wow! What a powerhouse meeting that was.
Yeah, that must. But I'll have to look. I saw it was on YouTube. I didn't watch it though. I just saw that it was there. So after this, I'll have to take a gander. But I thought one thing I just wanted to kind of lead off with for a topic because this one makes me get passionate, and that is this whole thing with the negotiations with Europe and the Ukraine. I learned a bunch of things I hadn't really learned before, but maybe at the top end of it, I thought this was just a cool thought that occurred to me. You look at Europe and the lifestyles they lead. They got a this crazy healthcare coverage. They're on vacation all the time, usually trouncing around all over the world, and a lot of times here. And think to yourself, how do they have all this? Well, they have it because they've been operating under our defense umbrella since 1945. We rebuilt the country with the whole thing with the Marshall Plan, and then we defend it till the cows come home. And in exchange for that, they call us names, look down their noses at us. I think Germany is what 1.2% of GDP goes to their own defense, and they've never met the requirement for that, which I think is around 4%. None of them meet it, and it's so great to finally have a president call them out. I mean, why are we subsidizing them, and they won't even take care of themselves? To use the old vernacular, I say hell to the no, I think one of the greatest things Trump has called them out on that. And then one last thing I would add to this, I didn't realize that Europe was didn't give Ukraine the 300 billion or whatever they gave them. They loaned it to them. So they like the fact that Ukraine stays at war because they make more money on it. No wonder they're against Trump ending the war because that's like cash. That's just cash money to them. We, on the other hand, our taxpayers just writing checks to these guys with nothing in exchange. And one of the coolest things about this is Trump, once again, being the king of the deal, is like, yeah, we'll end the war, but guess what? You're going to give us mineral rights, and you're going to pay back the American taxpayer for covering your hide. It's too bad we're not able to do that for the entire 80 years we've been covering their hide, but at least it's a starting point. So let me stop there, Sonny, and let you wax
Well,
eloquent.
well, it is, and Trump wrote the art of the deal, and he is a master deal maker. And so that's a great thing. We need these rare earth minerals, and they have them. And he spoke about that a bit today. He goes, they have a lot. We only have a little.
Mhm,
And so it just makes sense. And so I'm all for making sense. I like the common sense approach.
mhm,
And yes, we shouldn't be paying so much as what we've had.
mhm,
I want to comment on what Lori said there, that Elon, so he says, it's funny, these people, we sent the email out to them and they thought it was a performance evaluation. It wasn't. It was a pulse check. They're checking to see if anybody's on the other end. And he said, it's looking like 100 million people are not, but they're getting checks.
mhm.
100 million people that they've not heard from. I couldn't.
100 million?
100 million people.
It's wow. It's just hard. It's just hard to
I think
believe.
that's what he had said, was 100 million.
Uh,
No, that couldn't be right.
mhm,
That couldn't be right. A million people. No, no, no. A million people.
yeah,
100 million. No, that's crazy. But
mhm,
a million people,
yeah.
that's just over, Oregon has almost 4 million people in it.
Well, you
It's,
start adding up that grift and graft across, every department, it seems, has some percentage of this. It's hard to tell what exactly it is. Whatever it is, it's just huge. I think what was Musk talking about? Potentially getting back 2 trillion. I mean, trillion. It's like not now. A billion's not a big deal. Apparently, we got to talk in terms of trillions.
well, that's what they want to cut,
Mhm,
is about $2 trillion.
mhm,
And Elon said that what they have to, in order to get to this,
mhm.
they have to cut 4 billion a day every day. He
Wow.
says, and I think we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
I think that we'll get there. And they're trying to get to the bottom of these people. Are they dead? Why won't they respond to their emails? It's crazy,
yeah, and
crazy, crazy.
it's amazing. Democrats are actually trying to attack the fact that we're finding waste and getting rid of it. It's like it's a losing strategy. I say let them keep attacking that.
Well, I agree. The more that let's see, I think they protest too much.
Yeah,
you know, that's
absolutely. and,
that's it. It's their gravy train has been
mhm,
cut off.
and
And every now and then on X, I see, some legislator that makes, $240,000 a year, and after 6 years worth, I think AOC is one of those, is worth $16 million. Well,
mhm,
yeah, how'd that happen? And then some are they're affiliated with an NGO that they're voting to
mhm.
fund. That's an absolute conflict of interest.
Well, I
So
think
I'm very happy to see the corruption brought up. It's so sad to see. I mean, our country, it's like Disneyland. America is so beautiful. We're a wonderful nation with kind hearted people that have a lot of integrity. Not everybody does. There are shysters and shysters aplenty, and maybe that's why they like going to government. I don't know, but it's truly like living in Disneyland in our country, and so I'm just happy that we're seeing some exposure of the corruption. And as Lori says, any U.S. citizen going against the cleanup are just fools. They are, because why wouldn't you want your government to be run more efficiently? Cut out the waste, cut out the redundancy, get rid of those that are not working. You know,
Well,
that's a segue into those hundred in the chat group.
well, I tell you, I came to a conclusion a number of years ago when I was younger, actually, just from college work study projects. If you have four people in a group, one person is going to work really hard. The second person is going to work, reasonably hard. And then the third person might just do just enough to get by, but that fourth one is not going to do a thing. And you
Yeah.
will carry that person. And that pretty much applies the old 80-20 rule to the private sector. You're
Yeah.
going to have eight people who work and one person who won't do a thing unless you have a gun to their head. This is where I think it differs in the public sector. In the public sector, it's not that ratio goes from 80% working to a flip, 20% work and 80% do nothing. It attracts the kind of person who wants to just go to work, get a check. I said go to work. I didn't say work. I said go to work. And now they don't even have to do that, of course, in the federal government. They can stay home. But
Yeah.
people who are completely okay with mooching, and I think that's what you've seen. And it used to be that you traded off. If you went to work for the government, you knew that you're going to make less money, and you're trading that off for being virtually unable to be
Yeah.
fired. What these moochers have done is they changed the paradigm. So now you can make more in the federal government, have better benefits because of these government unions, and of which there should be no such thing, by the way,
Yes.
and and then never get fired on top of that. So all the Biden administration did was just light this thing on steroids, and we're seeing the result of that. It already attracts, generally speaking. I'm not going to knock all of them, but those
No.
20% are carrying the 80%. And I think it's the job of Doge to find the 20%, keep them, and get rid of the other 80%. Um,
I agree. And Elon said we've got some talented people. We
oh yeah,
do have some talented people in our government, and I have no doubt of that. Um, but it is to have the, so I've just posted here about the Tulsi Gabbard says more than 100 intelligence officials are going to be fired over that secret chat group, and that was that. I mean, I don't even want to repeat what they were talking about in here.
it's unrepeatable.
It is. And this is stuff that you do if this is your cup of tea, you do it on your time and your dime, not at work, not in a work atmosphere of and that a work communication channel, official
They,
communication channel.
there was something literally talking about pedophilia. I mean, basically, again, without getting more graphic than that,
Yes.
literally texting each other about that. So here's the thought that came to my mind. You got to ask yourself, anyone listening to this, in your network of people that you know, do you know anyone who would do something like that? I mean, I'm sure that 1 or 2 degrees removed, you could probably think of somebody out there who maybe they look at porn or whatever it is, right? My point is that these people are not the general population. You got to ask yourself, how in the world do you find 100 people like-minded to work at the same place who would do this sort of thing? I submit to you that the odds of that are really small, unless it's intentional. And I think that it is. I think these people got into these positions, and then by the way they self-select, they look for people who are like themselves. And this generally tends to be the case in any organization, right? You have to fight hard to not do that, but they put that on steroids too. So these are the kinds of people in the elitist leadership class. They go to the same universities, they do the same stuff. They're all anti-God. All right? We saw the Democratic Party pretty much eliminated prayer, for example, in their meetings, in the workplace, no saluting the flag. That's all intentional. So to that extent, I'm not surprised. I guess I'm surprised at the number of them or how bodacious they got. That you
Yes.
could just think you could do this and leave an electronic footprint, which you and I both know never goes away, and think you're going to get away with it. But I think that's the truism.
Yes, it is. And so I posted a link to this, and Tulsi Gabbard says they were brazen in using an NSA platform intended for professional use to conduct this kind of really, really horrific behavior. She didn't even want to mention it, and on government servers. This it's just unfathomable to me. But as you mentioned, those that are going to be attracted to others and also even help their friends get a job, right? They're going to, oh, yeah, come on in here. We don't have to do anything.
Well, they're clearly pushing that kind of an agenda. You might remember the guy who was stealing luggage in
Oh,
airports.
yes. Oh, my word.
A prime example. And they put this guy in charge of he had a top secret clearance for nuclear secrets. I mean, are you kidding me?
And he was confirmed. And
Yeah,
they're bitching about confirmations.
yeah.
That guy was confirmed. The
A guy
guy's mentally ill.
clearly mentally ill, but they want to run people like Tulsi Gabbard through the ringer for a confirmation.
Yes.
And this thing is confirmed. It's unbelievable, and not the only one, by the way.
No. No. So Tulsi says, I put out a directive today that they will all be terminated and their security clearances will be revoked.
Yeah.
As it should be. I'm
That's
telling
awesome.
you.
And probably charges ought to be brought. That's got to be a crime on some level.
I would think so. I would think so. It's yeah. I just have zero respect for someone who would do that. Zero respect.
Yeah. But I did want to mention before I forgot it, though, when we were talking about Trump and the art of the deal again, that's that whole
Yes.
issue with California. And we know that their governor, what's his name, Newsom, is finally come back hat in hand to ask Trump for 49 billion to rescue California. Now remember, this is the irony of it. This is a guy who asked the legislatures right when the fires were happening to go to Sacramento, and Trump proofed the state. I mean, you cannot make this up. So he does that. Now he comes back to Trump and asks for 49 billion. Trump, being ever gracious, of course, said, "Yeah, if other 49 states are happy to give you 49 billion." However, interesting, it happens to be the same amount of number of states, a billion per state, I guess. But happy to do it. But in exchange for that, what is it? Driver photo ID or voter registration ID. You have to do that, and you have to release the water. These seem like pretty minor asks to me. And I remember hearing a couple of conservative talk show hosts on the radio when this was going down, who basically said they could see him asking about the water, but they thought it was over the top to ask for the voter ID because it might come across as too political. And I thought to myself, at first I doubted it myself. Then I thought, no, that's the right thing to do. That's the art of the deal.
Yes.
They put themselves, they're not going to do it unless their rear end is over a barrel. And the rear end's over a barrel, and they didn't make them do it. Because you look at California, 55, votes, electoral votes that conservatives never
Yes.
get, and a percentage of that is just massive cheating. So if we could get them to fix the cheating in one fell swoop in exchange for 49 billion, worth every nickel.
Well, absolutely, and having voter ID, same day voter on paper in person, and then it's about verifying if they're legal or not. I think that's a win.
Mhm.
And of course, opening the water up again too.
Right.
Oh, they've killed San Joaquin Valley
Well,
and Sacramento Valley and all of that, just killed it. But and I saw on X that the cleanup crew, FEMA cleanup crew, says, you know what, we're done with all the cleanup in California. I'm going, really? I don't know if that post was true, but they said, yeah, Trump said we want it done in X amount of time. And you know what? By golly, we got it all done. But
yeah.
yet the mayor who fired the chief of the fire department
How rich
and
is
is
that?
getting lots of flack for that. I think the two of them, all three should be fired. The fire chief, the mayor, and the governor.
Probably a whole lot reporting to them. That is amazing. She had the audacity to fire the fire chief.
She
She
did.
was on a vacation to, I can't remember where it was. Was it Ghana?
Grenada, Ghana, somewhere.
It was one of the West African
Yeah,
countries.
yeah. I think it was in Ghana.
Yeah. Knowing full well the weather was going bad, the temperatures were going bad, the
Yes.
Santa Ana winds are going. So she had been warned ahead of time, and she left anyway. And she has the audacity to fire the fire chief. Um,
I think it's because the fire chief criticized her.
oh,
So
I'm
her
sure.
ego, her ego got in the way.
Huh,
And instead of, owning your own screw up,
right.
but people don't do that often.
Yeah, no, it takes very few do that, and certainly not not these grifting leftists who are narcissists by nature.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you can't expect that.
So if it's all cleaned up, which I like find super hard to believe, the mayor says it's going to be 5 years before it'll be rebuilt.
5 years. Now, can you imagine being out of your home for 5 years?
You will never rebuild if it's 5 years. I don't believe that you
Mhm,
will rebuild if it's 5 years. Now, there's not enough construction workers. Some
mhm,
of these homes took 3 years or even 5 years to build
mhm,
because they were massive mansions,
mhm,
you know. And but you see, they changed the zoning, and Trump had said you have to clear the regulations and let these people get building and get building now. So there might be some more strings attached. We're going to have to wait and see over there on Mayor Bass.
See, at the end of the day, it's because they don't want to. I mean, American ingenuity is an incredible thing. I am fully convinced that could be rebuilt pretty quick. You remember when I was it the San Fernando Freeway? I think it was. This was I
Oh
was in
yeah.
Los Angeles in '92 when they had that big earthquake and the freeway
Yep.
was destroyed. They hung a contract out there, an incentive-based contract. You can get it done. The shorter time you got it, the bigger the bonus. That baby was built in like a year, maybe 6 months. It was done. We couldn't believe it, right?
Yeah.
So you clear the regulations, and you throw an incentive out there, people respond. And then there's that famous case, I think it was in World War II, when uh, there was at the Guadalcanal, the USS Enterprise, I think it was like completely damaged. And they thought it would take 3 months to get back to sea. And Nimitz says, "Well, fellas, you got 3 days,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and they did it.
Yeah.
It's a question of modifying the rules, rethinking how we do it. That could be done. Look at our border. Did you think that our border? Who would have thought it could have been changed this fast? No, I thought it could have been changed. I don't know that I would have been sent this fast. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I have to say, I was very confident because Trump just reinstated everything that he had been taken to court for, right?
Mhm. Right.
And then also called in an emergency, and
Mhm.
that put the military down there.
Mhm.
And the military, okay, that now is a game changer because all of the assets that our military has.
Mhm.
So it is dang exciting to go from 2,500 a day down
Mhm.
to 200 or less.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, so I think at the end of this, it's all about the will to do it. And if
Yes.
if if we wanted to like rebuild California, and you're willing to like do the things required to do it, which you start with eliminating all these silly regulations or whatever, that
Yeah.
could be done. Well, certainly not in 4 years. Um, you just have to have the will to do it. And the leadership in California, I don't think they want to do it.
No, and like Lori says, they have 15-minute city planned. They wanted to increase the congestion there with through their zoning, and
Mhm,
so they have a whole different vision for
mhm,
what was there instead of magnificent single family homes,
mhm.
and in some prime real estate, they want it to be a congestion, many more people living in that area.
Section 8 by the Palisades.
Yeah,
The best
yeah.
section 8 housing in the country. Bed-Stuy, eat your heart out. Cabrini Green in the Palisades.
Well, they also have to start. They have to eliminate the coastal commission.
Yes.
just like disband the Coastal Commission. That will have a huge effect there. And I see Mo says he signed an executive order to start harvesting trees again. Yes, on federal forest properties. I love it. Let's get our Forest Service back to work managing the forest the way we used to do 40, 60 years ago
Mhm.
when we didn't have huge fires like we are now. I would rather have the trees grow and harvested and enjoy our forests than seeing them go up in smoke and all of the wildlife being displaced and killed.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, hey, maybe after Trump, because he won't be able to run for another term, maybe he just runs for governor of California.
Well, he'd have to live there, and he doesn't. He's an East Coast guy.
Yeah, that's
He's a
true.
Southern guy too. He's in Florida now. He was a New Yorker, but now he's in Florida.
And there's that property.
The
I can't remember
taxes are
his
too
name.
damn high in California, let
There-
me tell you.
There's there's people in California though who have the right chops to do that, and maybe it just needs to be bad enough for them to do it. And this might be the thing that pushes them over the edge. They've had enough.
Yeah,
They've lived leftism. Are you ready
yeah,
finally to
yeah,
change?
absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. So, hey, I've got a story I'm going to post, and that is on Lee Zeldin, something that Trump had said during the his board meeting, the first cabinet meeting, I should say, is, and Trump actually said it. The president says staff at the agency included a lot of people that weren't doing their job, and it's likely to cut 65% of the EPA staff.
easy
That's
20 years.
huge.
They can go in all the regulations with them.
So the EPA employs over 18,000 people, and over 17,000 of them being permanent workers. And so when you downsize, and they are downsizing, we're downsizing government. And I think that's a great thing. And I think we can do more or do the same with less. And actually, we don't want the same,
Mhm.
especially from the EPA. We don't want the same of what we've had by any means.
Yeah.
So it's because we've got so much regulation and so much bureaucracy. So during the first 18 months of Trump's first term, the agency shed over 1,500 employees. But the workforce grew well over 1,000 in Trump's or in Biden's term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the administrative state, the Leviathan, the monster that slows, smothers all desire or incentive to grow business. That's what they do, and it's so great to see this monster being tamed.
Yeah.
Um, and there's lots of departments like it. We all know Department of Education. That's another one. They all got to go. They either got to be eliminated or dramatically shrunk. Dramatically shrunk. And there probably ought to be some legislative limit to the number of people who can even be employed in these departments.
Yeah, we need to have people that are actually working for the people instead of going to work and how can I screw the American people? Working against
Right.
us. That's
Mhm.
not what our government is should be doing for us. And so I'm telling you, the cleaning out is just awesome,
Well,
awesome.
like everybody else in the world, there's got to be some kind of a performance based, compensation system or at least evaluation system. I remember being shocked, and I had a job as a kid, and I might have mentioned this in the show before. I think it was like one of my first jobs. It was the old CETA program. You might remember the Comprehensive Employment Training Act. Why I remember this, I don't know, but they had these CETA jobs in the late '70s. This was a Carter administration thing, right? And it was designed to help poor kids from underdeveloped backgrounds, which I didn't qualify for, but didn't matter, to get these federal jobs. And it was in the Carter administration. The economy was a wreck, so you couldn't find a job anyway. So it worked out to be a good deal for me. $4.50 an hour. And I watched this department basically have this program in place where I think at the end of the quarter or at the end of the fiscal year, we rushed out and bought, like, I think it was like $30,000 in, like, just junk. We went over to Walmart. Hey, we got to buy all this money by midnight. We got to buy all this stuff by midnight tonight. What should we buy? Doesn't matter. Just buy stuff. And we fill up the cars. Now I'm like
Yes.
19 and I'm thinking about, I'm beginning to have, I'm not really a political mind yet, but I'm thinking to myself, somebody's money is getting like urinated right here. I was smart enough
Yeah.
to figure that out. And it began to dawn on me how government operations work. And that program had no measurement around whether it was successful or not. Like in this case, it was designed to help kids who were from poor backgrounds get to college, where they weren't measuring how many kids graduated, what their grade points were, year in and year out, how many of them actually went to college, how many of them graduated. These are like basic things. And my wife and I did a work study program on that, a work study project on that, a study project in college on that program. And as soon as they started realizing the leadership, what we were doing, they didn't want any parts of it. We had to work so hard to complete that study and then present our findings. And we presented our findings to the professors. The people that worked on the outfit were nowhere to be seen. And we didn't. We were too young to realize what was going on. And I was like, oh, because that's holding them accountable. And we were just
Uh-oh, you were truth tellers.
we were, we were too young to understand the ramifications of that. So we just presented it like, hey, here's some great ideas. We thought, oh, this is so great. All you got to do is start measuring who graduates from college, what your percentage rate is, and all of these things. And then
Yeah.
hey, guess what? If you're short, you can do things to improve it. But it took me years to realize later what we had just stumbled across. Oh, that's government wants no parts of that.
Right. Yeah, and how sad is that? That's the truth. Is how sad is that? It's it's the NGO job. I want the NGO,
Yeah, the
NGO
job,
job.
the job is to keep the job. My sister worked across the river in Portland in these in women's shelter programs designed to help women who were in trouble, women's shelters, this kind of stuff, right? And she said she began to gradually realize they weren't interested in solving the problem.
Yeah.
They were just in keeping the job. They were just in keeping the grant money coming. So whether they helped those people out at the end of the day was not important. In fact, it was probably beneficial for them to keep coming back, because that increased your numbers, which justified your existence, which justified the job, which justified the grants. And those places, it's like that's why you build it. Once you build a government program, it's
Mhm.
eternal. It's like it's like religion. It's eternal. It's like God. It never dies.
So I just posted another story on the cuts, and the Social Security eliminates an entire department, and that's the Agency Office of Transformation. And the Office of Transformation, it describes in a news release Monday as a wasteful department. The Social Security Administration announced it. And President Trump had mandated the federal government eliminate wasteful and inefficient offices, and the Office of Transformation was a prime example. And this redundant office was created under the previous administration, and we are righting that wrong, is a statement from Commissioner Lee Dudek, who is the uh, acting Social Security Commissioner. So there we are. There's boom, boom, one gone. I can see, Javier Malay there, with his chainsaw, but ripping those tabs off. There goes one. Oh yeah, we got another one.
Maybe Javier could let us borrow the chainsaw. Can you leave that at the Oval Office?
Well, he gave it to Elon Musk.
Oh, did he? Oh,
He
that's
did. He gave it to Elon Musk at CPAC, and he says, "You're going to need this." And this was Javier Malay's chainsaw that he had used in his country, saying, "We're going to be trimming things."
that's awesome. Speaking of trimming things, I couldn't resist the ugly segue. How about the happenings at MSNBC with the firing of race baiter Joy Reid? I'm sure you've heard about that.
Yes, and I can't say that I'm sad.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those ones where I just, first of all, I can't. I used to not be. How in the world does someone so mean, so nasty, so vindictive, so racist stay on the air? And how did this happen while their ratings were plummeting? I mean, MSNBC, it's just in the toilet. And then Joy Sunday and I were talking earlier, and then she just brought this up. Well, maybe they were getting this Doge money. It completely, I don't know if it's true or not Doge money, but maybe they were getting this funding from USAID. It would make total sense.
Yeah. And that does make sense, because how do you keep a failing when the viewership is going down? Their ratings are in the gutter. There's nobody watching them. And yet they keep a person like Joy Reid and others afloat. But it's all crumbling now, Don. It is
Yeah.
all crumbling.
And the hypocrisy is stunning. So fellow, race baiter Rachel Maddow, who was also in the show, of course, she's the white version of Joy. She
Yes.
didn't lose her $20 million gig, but she had the audacity to accuse MSNBC of being racist for firing her. And my whole thought was, well, why don't you just, if you like reparations so much, why don't you just switch, give her your job? Of course, they never want to do that. They want to give them your money.
Right, right. They want somebody else. It's more fun spending somebody else's money.
The irony on that thing, it just, I gotta say, you can't make it up. You cannot make it
No,
up.
no, you can't. No, you can't. When will they cancel The View? Good question.
Yeah,
Good.
how's that thing
Stay
afoot?
tuned. It might be sooner than we know.
I think so. Well, a number of them are being sued. I can't remember, which ones and how much, but they've had to retract and apologize a number of times because we finally have a muscular administration is not afraid to call them out. I think it's just great.
Well, I do too. And then I've seen, I haven't seen any lately, but since before Trump got elected, they had a lawyer. Like if one of them on The View made a statement,
Mhm.
and then they said, wait a minute, you've got a note from the attorney. You have to read this statement on the air, retracting, correcting what you said, because they're afraid of getting sued for defamation. And I tell you, I think it is fabulous.
It is awesome. So even that network, they can no longer just flat out lie
No,
anymore.
no.
They still will lie, but they can't just factually, just lie like they did before. And that is a great thing.
Well, it is a great thing. And, and they are going after these judges that are trying to take over. Here you have judges, the judicial branch, trying to take over the executive branch, you know, and they're saying, I think we're going to have to impeach. We've got a couple, 3, 4, 5 judges, and I think we need to go impeach them. And so articles of impeachment are coming out, at least against 2. I don't have a story on that, but I had read that actually on X,
Mhm,
one of the best news sources out there.
mhm.
That's for sure. And so that
Well,
is something that is definitely going to be coming.
Well, that's how the left runs things. They can never get things through the will of the people. So the way you get around that is usurp these leftist judges and get what you want. That's how we got Roe v. Wade in the first place, for example. If
Yes.
they wanted to do that the right way, they could have done an amendment to the Constitution, but they didn't because that would have reflected the will of the people, and the left can never win that way. So they have to win it through judicial branch. So that's just the classic strategy of the left. And the other thing, and brings to mind the whole spat between the governor of Maine and Trump, which I'm sure you've heard of by now. So so she wants to continue this transgender stuff, and a number of people like her, and there's other states that have done this. They're actually talking about leaving the union. Now, I think we've been through this once before, and it was
Yes.
Democrat states that caused that. So they're just replaying the same thing they do all the time. So clearly, she says she's going to follow state and federal law. Well, you're talking to federal law. The federal law trumps state law, and as a result, you have to bend to that. But if you don't want to bend to that, then well, how about we have civil war? How about we secede from the union? And it's just insane to me that these people are just bodacious enough to fly that. And of course, words, do have meaning. Words do have consequences. And those words led to, I can't remember, 600,000 Americans getting killed in the worst war this country's ever been in. But they have no problem repeating that.
No, no, they don't. And but I think under in this term, presidential term, we are going to see a big shift towards the lawlessness, or the tax on the lawfare tax. That's a word I'm trying to search for. In fact, one in that cabinet meeting today, one of the reporters had said something about, I don't remember exactly how he worded it, about, are you going after, so these agencies and stuff? And Trump says, don't talk to me about, targeted investigations. I've been all through that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of those. We're putting that stuff to an end.
Mhm.
And yet he has the right to actually find the fraud, waste, and abuse in our government.
Mhm.
He's the CEO he's the president and the CEO. So I applaud what he's trying to do, or what he's not trying, what he is doing,
Mhm.
and he's moving quick. And Elon Musk today spoke quite a bit about how it needs to happen quickly, because our nation cannot stand with the interest that we're paying on all this debt we have. He says we're paying 2 trillion in interest. We've got we It's not sustainable. So to save our country, we have to our cut the size of our government, and that's what we're doing. And the tariffs are going to be another part of it. There's many layers to what they're doing to
Mhm.
help right the ship of our nation.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. I mean, to be able to see manufacturing jobs, for example, come back into the country. I mean, all of that stuff's been shipped out, given the policies of the
Yeah,
last administration. You think of the impact that that has. Again, I'll go back to younger people. I mean,
yeah,
there there's like no jobs that you can get working with your hands, because that's all done overseas, because the left has gutted that. And then they
yeah.
make it, pretty much impossible to get a job as a young person unless you have a college degree. And of course, to get the college degree, you got to be in debt that you'll never get out of. And of course, and then the reciprocal thing to that is, it's also teaching you to be a good leftist. The whole college exercise is a degree in
Yeah.
Marxism. That's the only thing you're really getting out of it, with a few exceptions in terms of the kinds of degrees that you get. So, what a beautiful grift or scam for them. You get to pay for your kid to be a Marxist. Nice. And further drive the
Yeah.
country into the. So, it's great to find the country's finally waking up and seeing this, um,
Well,
and
that's where
responding.
part of it is waking up the country. And didn't you have a study that was like 97% approve of what's happening?
Oh, yeah, I was looking at this. Let me find a Quinnipiac poll. So I think this is really good. I mean, if nothing
A
else
study.
excites you, this should. Yeah. So of the registered Republicans, 79% approved of their lawmakers' performance, compared to 10% of conservatives who disapproved. That is, you get 10 people in a room, you're never going to get 8 people agreeing on something. So that is incredible. On the other hand, amongst Democrats approving, these are Democrats approving of Democrats in the job. Um, 68% of Democrats approve of Democrats' performance in the job. That is like historically bad. Only 20% approved of what Democrats were doing in Congress. 20% of Democrats approved of what they're doing in Congress. So this is a historic moment. And unlike in the past, I think what makes this so unique in American history, they're not bothering to tack back to the middle. I mean, historically, what happens is you might have conservatives who go far right, and then they lose in the midterms, and you tack back to the middle.
Mhm.
And the same is true on the left. But I've never seen this where they double down, triple down. And there isn't a single person you could think of in the Democrat Party of any prominence, who's who's pushing tacking back to the middle. The thing's in complete flame out. Where's the Bill Clinton? I don't see him.
No, they don't have anybody. They're still screaming racism, and they're still screaming their same playbook. They don't have anything else. When they start singing awful songs, on the
Mhm.
steps of Congress, they don't have anything.
Yeah,
And
the party's been taken over by the lunatic side,
yeah,
and the side that, because I know they're there. The moderates are just shouted down, or don't have the courage, or don't have the loudspeaker. How far does it have to burn for them to do that? I don't know.
I don't know, but more of the moderates have come over to our side. The moderates are going, you know what? I likes what I'm seeing
Right.
of Trump.
Well,
I mean, look, we got Robert Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk, for crying out
yeah,
loud.
they
And
had no.
look at the other billionaires that have come in and gone, Trump, we want to help save our nation.
Yeah, they got kicked out of their home. That's pretty
Yeah.
much what
Or
happened.
burned out.
Burned out. In the case of California, burned out.
Hey, one more little story. Did you hear about this gold card visa?
Oh, for immigrants? Yes,
Yes.
I did. That's an
It's
interesting concept. I'll let you go ahead.
Well, it is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And so during the cabinet meeting, Trump shed more light on his new proposal to address the country's mounting debt. And I'm reading from this Epoch Times article. And he recently proposed selling gold card visas to wealthy immigrants in
Mhm,
exchange for a 5 million investment in the United States. Now, this is a visa that would also give you a green card and a pathway to citizenship. It does not
mhm,
give you citizenship. And
mhm,
I can tell you from my own travels, there were, when you travel on a sailboat and you arrive in some country, they'll give you varying 30 days or 3 months
mhm,
just for arriving. Okay. That's not the same for every. I'm an American passport holder, and I can only
mhm,
speak for an American passport holder.
mhm,
I've been where I was in immigration, and here comes a guy who sadly was from Russia,
mhm,
sailed his boat, and they said you have 24 hours to leave the country.
mhm,
So it varies. But anyway, what I'm mentioning this is because let's say we want to stay longer, we have to go
mhm,
back to immigration and say we'd like to extend our visa. What can we do? And they'd say, well,
mhm,
you can get another 90 days or whatever it was.
mhm,
And but they wanted to see that we had health care. They wanted to see that we had income
mhm.
and we weren't going to be a burden on their society. It's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
So, for this type of thing, this is for wealthy immigrants,
Mhm,
but it's not just that. He talked about those that are in university, they're going to Wharton School of Business,
mhm,
they graduate, and then they can't. Somebody at a company wants to hire them here,
mhm,
and they can't. Well, the company can also pay money. So
mhm,
this is for what's called, and Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, he actually talked about this during the meeting, this EB5 program that
mhm,
right now they can pay $1 million
mhm,
into US projects. So, but many of these projects are questionable and often didn't succeed. So they're looking to modify this EB5 agreement,
mhm,
and he's working with the Department of Homeland Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem,
mhm,
and so even a company could pay the 5 million for an employee. Okay, because that person who's going to Wharton School of Finance is not necessarily capable of paying $5 million right now,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
But this company can. And so they said, so here is for $5 million, they'll get a license from the Department of Commerce. Then they'll make a proper investment on the EB5.
mhm,
He mentioned that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will also be actively involved in redesigning the program. And they're looking at In fact, he said, because Scott and I are the best people together to do that, Lutnick said,
Hmm.
adding that 200,000 of these gold green cards is $1 trillion to pay down our debt. This is winning.
Well, and it's funny because at first blush, my initial thought was it violated my egalitarian principles, I guess. It's like, so we're going to allow people who are wealthy to get to the front of the line. I'm not so sure I like that, right? This was my initial first thought. Then I began to think about what's in the best interests of American citizens. Well, what's in the best interest is just what you described, paying down our debt, number one, and bringing in people who immediately benefit the rest of Americans. And people
Yes.
who are capable of doing that are benefiting the rest of Americans. And the reality is, it's no different than what our policy has been in the past. You look at when Ellis Island and all of that was going on,
Hmm.
we needed those people. The country was growing. You needed production. You needed people to work in manufacturing gigs, all of that, and we did that.
Hmm.
And these are people who became citizens, not like hyphenated Americans. They
Right.
became like American citizens, and they wanted to be here. Now, none of that is to say that you would still have your people who can apply because of political persecution and all of that sort of thing. We've always done that. But outside of those people, everybody else should be coming here. Yeah, you want to come here. We get that. But on the other hand, you got to bring something that benefits Americans and demonstrates you're not going to immediately go on the dole. Um,
Yeah. And this was something that Trump said. He said, so why should we turn away these graduates? Maybe they went to Yale, and he, named other colleges, universities. And he said, and they're going to go back to wherever they live and start up a business and have a lot of employees and become a billionaire. Let's
mhm,
let them do this in our country.
mhm,
Why should we turn them away? And he's absolutely right. We want bright people, and we want to encourage um, businesses or organizations to be able to bring them in, and at the same time, this pays down our debt. It's a win, and
yeah,
and $1 million. And so Trump says, "Oh, there's a lot of people that don't think that anybody will pay for it." He goes, "I think they will.
I think they
I
will.
think they will."
I mean, we're all hey, where else in the world they come here? Everybody wants to come here because
Yeah,
it's
well, that's
like
what he said too. He goes, "Nobody's trying to get into any other country. They all
yeah,
want to get in here."
yeah, exactly. And that's in spite of the damage done to us by the last
Yeah,
administration. It's still the most attractive place in the world. It's
it
it's
is.
it's insane to think that. But when you step back and realize how bad the rest of the world is, Europe included. I mean, I had a good friend of mine who was German. I remember him telling me this. He went to college with him, and he was saying that he was marveling at this little 1,500-foot house that my wife and I had bought in LA. This is when we bought our first house. He was talking about, and this guy was making a lot of money at the time, and I
Mhm.
think it was Hamburg, I think, and all he could afford was like a 1,200-foot flat, and that was considered huge. In that country, because the taxation was outrageous. It's like, Don, you
Yes.
wouldn't believe it. It's like 80% goes out the door for taxes. Um, and
Yeah.
we simply don't, as bad as taxes have been, they've not been that.
No. No, they've not. No, they've not. They're trying to in some states make it that
Yeah,
for I know. And I
but
had a really good friend that was from Greece, and she told me, she says, Sonny, there really are no homes. I was, in her and her husband's home. She says there are no homes like this
mm,
over there,
yeah,
because one, they just don't, they can't afford it. They
mhm,
just can't afford it because, like you just said, it's 80% tax. And yet they're only working a 4-day work week, go on vacation all over the place, and
subsidized by
still,
yours truly.
yeah,
Don't forget, all subsidized by us, and in more ways than one. Because think of this: because of the tremendous free market system that we have, think of all of the inventions over the last 100 years, right? And where do they come from? I mean, it's like crazy. I had a list runner somewhere. I once wrote a rant about it, but it's unbelievable all the things that come out of this country. So they benefit from that. The- You know,
yes,
they wouldn't have light bulbs, airplanes. They wouldn't have any of this stuff. You
yeah,
know, if but for the entrepreneurial class, the free enterprise system, American ingenuity, which is real.
You know, it is real, and free enterprise is what drives that. You know, that we don't have a caste system here, and anybody can make anything of themselves. You know, not everybody wants to be a chief, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But there, if you want to be a chief and rise up to be, you know, very high level chief, you can
Yeah,
very easily in this country through
and
hard work,
and that was one
perseverance,
of
and hard work.
what you just brought up made me think of one other thing he said that was fascinating. His dad was something like it was like a laborer, if you will, right? So he came to the United States, got an educated, and I got an education, and was looking to climb out of that class. And he said, you know what? Even in Germany, we talk about the Indian caste system. He said Germany
Yes.
has a very and all those European countries have a very strong caste system. Where you're born, that's where you stay,
Yep.
and people can tell. And he pretty much left and became an American citizen and moved here because he couldn't move beyond that. You couldn't get certain jobs, you couldn't get in certain industries, you just couldn't crack it. Didn't matter about your education, didn't matter how smart you were, where you born, where you stay, what your dad did, what your mom did.
Yeah.
That's where you stay, and
Yeah.
that's very much the way it is there.
It is, but not here in America.
No.
Anybody, and that's why people want to come here because you know they're they're not trying to get into anywhere else.
Mhm,
You know that I've ever seen that I have ever seen, except for this fellow that was on a ship. I'll tell you, very quickly.
mhm,
We were in Saint Martin. I
mhm,
think it was Saint Martin, and half the island is Dutch and the other half is French. And there was a fellow that we met he was from Poland,
mhm,
and he was a welder and a ship, not a ship fitter, but he was a welder in Poland.
mhm,
He built this sailboat, and it had a wood burning stove in it. It was pretty crude on the inside, but it had the necessities.
mhm,
And he got it all stocked up, unbeknownst to anybody.
mhm.
And he got permission from the authorities to go check its seaworthiness. And he fled the country. And here he was, because it's a easy downwind sail to then
Mhm,
get to the Eastern Caribbean. And he ended
mhm,
up in Martinique, and either Saint Martin or Martinique. Anyway, so it was he and a young gal, and to hear their stories, oh my God, it just made you cry to
yeah,
hear their stories. And I realized this man, you know, he risked it all
mhm,
to get away, just like many Cubans have done. I've actually watched a Cuban guy with a foam block,
mhm,
looked like the size of a twin mattress,
yeah,
climb over the seawall to go into the ocean. He wasn't going fishing. That guy
yeah,
was leaving.
yeah,
And so people that have a drive
mhm,
for a better life, they're willing to do anything for it. I don't begrudge them, but come in lawfully. I often think about this fellow, and he knew that going there was going to be relatively safe.
mhm,
He had no charts. He had no electronics. He had a sextant though, and he knew enough. Or maybe he had one chart. Maybe he had one chart, because it's very difficult without a chart. Yeah, quite the story of escaping the oppression and at that time, and that was in the late '90s.
yeah. I knew a family similar story, Cambodia in the late '70s, and swam across the Mekong River under machine gun fire. And that guy got here, figured it out. He was in a program that my wife and I ran, and he's a hardworking guy, right? He started the restaurant business and worked at the post office and did them both at the same time, moonlighted, and now he's got
Yeah,
property and and he still works the post office. Why? Because the guy can't stop working, and he's still got the restaurants. I'm like, dude, you're like almost 60 years old. You still doing that?
Oh, I bet he's a good cook too. Oh boy.
Trust me.
I bet. I
It
bet.
always was. Yeah. So, wow, son, you're not going to believe this, but it's 1900 hours, as we would say in the military.
Okay. Well, hey everybody. Thanks for being with us. Don, great evening. Great seeing you again. And I want to tell everybody, my brother and I went and had dinner with Don and Linda, and it was so good over at their house. It
Yeah,
was
she's vouching
really
for me.
nice.
I can actually cook a little bit.
Yes, you can. He's a good cook. Yeah, last Friday night. That was a lot of fun. Thank you,
That
Don.
was
Thank you, Linda.
awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad you guys came. That was awesome. I wish I could share with all of you the food, but who knows? Who knows what can happen down the road?
So everybody like and share this around, and thank you, and I'll be back on Friday.